Hello, my name is Dr. Ima Asonye, and I am your favorite host on this channel, and I am the creator of Omenka app. Omenka app was created for the preservation and codification of Igbo language and culture. And by extension, it is also created for the preservation any indigenous language. I am also the author of Nature's All, Notes from an African Village Boy. It was published on Amazon a few weeks back, so you can grab a copy while it is still available. It is on e-copy, it is on hard copy like this, and then it's also on paperback. And today I am here to discuss with you certain topic that has been part of what we are looking at in the work we are doing on Omenka app. Like I said, Omenka app was created for the preservation of Igbo language and culture. And so we deal with proverbs, Igbo words, cultural events. We deal with other proverbial words and expressions. So today I'm going to be looking at the concept of cultural values and disruptions. And I'm going to be reading from one of my poems that is on this anthology of about 51 poems combined together that took me over 15 years to work on from the days of my university. And I'm reading one of my favorite poems, Upside Down. And by the way, upside down, n'asụsụ Igbo, agasị na ọwụ ihe ghasara aghasa, ihe aghasala, upside down. Ihe emebiela. Upside down. That's how they say it. When the dog chews the bone that dangles from its neck. When they shatter the wall and the serpent strikes through the cracks, it slithers. And I want to explain this. This is a translation, or you might say transliteration, of an Igbo expression which says, Nkịta anaghị ata ọkpụkpụ anyawara ya n'olu. In Igbo worldview, nkịta anaghị ata ọkpụkpụ anyawara ya n'olu, which means the dog cannot eat the bone that is hung on its neck. That is to say, the bone is not meant to be eaten, even though dog eats bones. But that particular bone that is hung on a dog's neck is not meant to be eaten, it's meant to be kept. It's either that the dog cannot eat it or the dog should not eat it, or both. But in Igbo worldview, and Igbo people will say, Nkịta anaghị ata ọkpụkpụ anyawara ya n'olu. When such a thing happens, when the dog eats the bone that is hung on its neck, then something is wrong. That means there is a shifting. There is a disruption. Upside down. That's how they shouted when they glimpse the divine in all he has created, yet turn away in disdain, calling out his name while their hearts are far. Upside down. That's how they do it, putting the cart before the horse, hoping to get it back, eating their cake while priorities fall into disarray, forgotten. Upside down. That's what they call it. When folly wears the crown and the rich are cast aside, when the servants ride high and the prince treads low, on fields once revered. Upside down. That's how they proclaim it. When the land chases the fowl that farts, when it never rains but pours, when they gather the thorns from seeds of their own making, and weep till the well runs dry. And I also want to talk about this. Upside down, that's how they proclaim it. When the land chases the fowl that farts. This is another Igbo expression that says, Ọkụkọ nyụọ ahụ, gịnị ga-eme? Ala chụọ ya ọsọ. Ọkụkọ nyụọ ahụ, ala chụọ ya ọsọ. And this comes from a scene that usually happens. Sometimes you will see a fowl. I don't know if it happens in any other culture, but in Igbo culture, sometimes you will see a fowl on its own, it starts running. And the Igbo people believe that that fowl that is starting to run on its own, nothing is pursuing it, nothing happened, it may have farted. Then the fowl don't mess. So, as the fowl mess, the land don't pursue him. So what that means is the Igbo people look at it as the fowl is not just supposed to fart. Of course, we do not know if the fowl farts. And if the fowl does not fart and it happens to do that, it will get the result by the land chasing it. It will start running on its own. But this expression goes a long way to talk about disruptions. When a thing that was not happening happens, something will happen to show that a disruption has happened. And what does that mean? In the Igbo worldview, there is a belief that the God and the gods and the humans, that God, the Almighty, and the gods and the humans all have a role to play to keep equilibrium of the land, to ensure that the land is at peace. And when peace happens, it is to the benefit of human beings. But when there is disruption, something happens. In today's society, we find out that several times people create disruptions. And when disruptions happen, humans are usually the sufferers. In our land, in our society today, a lot of cultural shifts. When people shift away from the norms, how things are supposed to be done. In Igbo culture, we believe a whole lot of things, that God the Almighty, the gods, and the human beings are involved in making sure that things are working according to the precedents that they are set to work. In our society, in the larger Igbo society, in Nigeria, in the world, when there is a disruption, you will hear people crying out. And today, we have an example of a crying out happening in Nigeria today, which, of course, everybody has been talking about. A Nigerian youth couple who cried out about how suffering has overwhelmed her. And you have seen several videos of people commenting about the bravery of this young girl. But the aspect I want to touch as an example of a disruption is an aspect of the other video she made where an NYC official called her to say, pull that thing down. That's a disruption. There is a disruption that made this girl to cry out. But for a mother, a woman, elderly, older than the girl that cried out, to pretend as if the girl has committed an offense, rather than either siding the girl to voice out or shutting your mouth out if you are not allowed to comment. You can imagine the audacity as it was presented in the video of the girl. You can imagine the tenacity in the voice of the woman that called her to say, what are you trying to do? Why will you criticize the president? That's an example of disruption. When disruptions happen, the things that used to be abomination become norm. And that is what happens when the dog eats the bone hanging on its neck. That is what happens when fowl farts, the land go for sure. That is what we're trying to say. So in the work we are doing in Omenka app, we are tracing our cultural values, and we are trying to bring an education that takes our society back to what our ancestors used to value. Now, for a whole lot of us that grew up as Christians and are worshiping God through Christianity as our belief today, we grew up expecting that there's lots of promises that when you give your life, there's peace in your life. There's peace everywhere. But the problem we seem to see is that we have a lot proclaiming, calling Father, Father, doing miracles in the eyes of a whole lot of people, deceiving people as well, and getting involved in disruptions. The disruptions that we look at today are the disruptions that come because a people started to move away from how things are supposed to work. And if we begin to look at the historical part of it, all we are saying is the disruptions that happen in our society, they lead to some unprecedented actions by us as well. Unprecedented actions by humanity. They lead to unprecedented suffering. You can imagine the example of the copper who cried out. Today, so many people do not know the fate of this girl because of disruptions. Today, a lot of people believe that she is going to suffer for what she did. As some people are empathizing with her, how many people are going to rise? How many people are going to say, no, we join the voice that she raised? Some people are going to, okay, that's our problem. Not only she the suffer. The docility in our society when evil is on the rise is an example of disruption. And that is what my poem, Upside Down, seems to be talking about. And by the way, this poem is up for a translation competition. And if you are an Igbo scholar or an Igbo language speaker, you know how to do translation and you want to win a prize for participating in translation, we are going to be bringing out the information, the details about how the competition will go. And so you're going to enroll, get a copy of the book, and every month we will do a translation competition of one of the poems because we are translating the poem into Omenka app. By the way, if you have not gotten the Omenka app on your phone, please download Omenka app today. If you live abroad, if your children cannot speak Igbo, download Omenka app for them and teach them Igbo. If you do not know, you have lost track of a lot of information because you live abroad, download Omenka app. If you enjoy Igbo music from the antiquities, download Omenka app. If you enjoy the connection of the Igbo world, download Omenka app. If you are affiliated to Igbo and you, by virtue of your affiliation, are inclined to learning Igbo language, download Omenka app. Disruptions. Let us try and not be involved in the disruptions that happen in our society. Let us try and understand that things were set to work in a natural course when we go ahead to move the natural course of things in our society, which includes copying foreign cultures, shifting away from the norms. Because if you are not familiar with the culture of the land, you are bound to go against it. If you are not familiar with the laws of the land, you are bound to break the laws. And the natural laws sometimes, or many of the times when they are broken by us, consequences become inevitable, upside down. That's how they shouted. When whatever we do brings a consequence that we never wanted, never bargained. Follow us on this channel, download the Omenka app, and get a copy of Nature's All, and enjoy a very detailed work of poem that started these years back upside down. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Don't get involved in disruptions. Bye-bye.